Christian van Holtz. Ik heb een vliegtuig willen gestudeerd. En op een gegeven moment ging ik vliegtuigfilms maken. En toen escaleerde het een beetje. Op een gegeven moment, aan mijn diensttijd, vroeg ik aan de vliegtuigbouwers of ze misschien een veilig vliegtuig wilden bouwen. Ik had net het patent ontwikkeld voor het oleopneumatisch dempen van de draagkracht van vleugels. Dat is met lucht en met olie. Want ik vermoedde dat er een gebrekkig defect in zat. Ik dacht dat de vleugel niet tegen een nogal forse klap kon. Ja, het gevolg was dat op die rondvraag niet geen weinig reactie kreeg. Een beetje ingebeeld van ja, het is allemaal goed. En toen stortte er een vliegtuig neer bij Moerdijk. Een tornado sloeg een Fokker Fellowship F-28 de vleugel af. Ja, het was precies wat ik vermoedde. Maar dat soort, ja, het was waarschijnlijk een anticlimax op het escaleren van de vliegrampencomedie bij Tenerife. Toen in 1977, in juni, of wat was juli, toen botsten twee toestellen van Bijlmer-jets, Amerikaanse en Nederlandse op elkaar. Ja, die klap die is natuurlijk voort blijven duren dat uiteindelijk de mensheid tot ontdekking zou komen wat die vreemde rampen eigenlijk zouden veroorzaken. Het is gewoon een botsing tussen twee werelden die je krijgt door al die de bewustwording van die films. En dat effect dat bleef gewoon in de lucht hangen. Ja, dat kwam mooi tot uiting met het ongeval in Moerdijk. En er volgt een hele serie van ongevallen. Allerlei kritische opmerkingen. En ja, na een paar maanden was het in kaart gebracht wat de voornaamste vliegrampzalige oorzaken waren. Dat heeft een paar jaar geduurd, nou een paar jaar, 2 decennia eigenlijk. Pas na 7 jaar tijd kregen we de pers door dat er iets mis was. Toen hadden we aan het Algemeen Dagblad met een artikel erover, op 15 januari 1988, op pagina 2. En toen hebben ze geprobeerd te schetsen wat er gebeurd was, maar ja, het was wel erg zwak. Ze dachten aan de wet van Murphy. En ja, het is wel een aardig artikel hoor, maar de ware oorzaken komen niet naar voren. Maar goed, ik heb daar een film over gemaakt. Een documentaire over proberen te maken, maar dat is ook niet aangeslagen. Maar ik kan wel een excursie aanbieden van Delft naar Moerdijk. En daar is dan een gedichtenbundel over. Waarbij dus de hele situatie in gedichten is verwoord. En dan hoop ik dat het de mensheid weer terug zal brengen tot de realiteit van wat er gebeurd is. Het is wel een beetje mijn vader dat ze nog na al die jaren, nog 70 jaar, weet ze nog steeds niet dat er een soort educatieve naproef op een vliegtuig was. Omdat de patent, de noodzaak van het patent nog aan te tonen. Ja, ik hoop in ieder geval dat die excursies om de mensheid weer terug zal brengen tot de realiteit. Dus ik een pas up nemen.
on the River Maas, city of rolled-up sleeves, founded in 1340. Almost 600,000 colourful inhabitants with over 160 different nationalities. City colours, green and white. City language, Rotterdams. Euromarkt, reus van Rotterdam. Landmarkt telt 185 meters, 131 betonpalen en 125 ramen. Bouwjaar 1960, ter ere van de Floriade. Architect Huug Maaskamp. Maaskamp heeft vele Nederlandse markante beroemdheden ontworpen. Het Groothandelsgebouw en het Hilton Hotel in Rotterdam en de pier in Scheveningen. Euromarkt, giant of Rotterdam, and landmark is 185 meters high and constructed on a 131 concrete poles. It has 125 windows. Built in 1960 by architect Huug Maaskamp on the occasion of the Floriade, a flower exhibition in the Netherlands. Rotterdam is beroemd om zijn bruggen. Ze vormen de verbinding tussen Noord...
Airframe test model.
Het ongeluk gebeurde in Californië. Brandweermensen zagen de Hercules C-130 bluspoeder uitwerpen toen het misging.
centrum van Mexico-stad is het vliegtuigje neergestort. Alle 8 inzittenden zijn omgekomen. Onder hen de minister van Binnenlandse Zaken, Juan Camilo Moerdijk. Het toestel crashte in een park, vlakbij een belangrijke verkeersader. De piloot heeft mogelijk geprobeerd op de weg te landen en een aantal auto's vloog in brand. Het ongeluk leidde tot een verkeerschaos in de stad. Het toestel was vertrokken uit de stad San Luis Potosí. Volgens de minister van Transport wijst alles op een ongeluk.
People ducked into doorways, and people didn't stop to be so sick that I couldn't breathe at all. I find it really hard to talk.
They're both down now. It's just a huge cloud of smoke.
We have an airplane that crashed into the Pentagon.
In het centrum van Mexico-stad is het vliegtuigje neergestort. Alle 8 inzittenden zijn omgekomen. Onder hen de minister van Binnenlandse Zaken, Juan Camilo Moerdijk. Het toestel crashte in een park, vlakbij een belangrijke verkeersader. De piloot heeft mogelijk geprobeerd op de weg te landen en een aantal auto's vloog in brand. Het ongeluk leidde tot een verkeerschaos in de stad. Het toestel was vertrokken uit de stad San Luis Potosí. Volgens de minister van Transport wijst alles op een ongeluk.
In de Verenigde Staten is een blusvliegtuig verongelukt bij het bestrijden van een grote bosbrand. De 3 bemanningsleden kwamen om het leven. Het ongeluk gebeurde in Californië. Brandweermensen zagen de Hercules C-130 bluspoeder uitwerpen toen het misging.
Yeah! Oh, he just crashed!
En op het internationale vliegveld Narita in Tokio verongelukte een toestel van de Amerikaanse pakketdienst FedEx. Daarbij kwamen de 2 bemanningsleden om het leven. Het toestel kwam direct na een harde landing weer omhoog en rolde om. Daarna raakte de vleugel de grond en vloog het toestel in brand. Het vliegtuig kwam ondersteboven tot stilstand naast de baan. Volgens meteorologen was er sprake van stormachtige wind.
Flying Mountain for Flying with Wisdom presents Don't Fly into a Tornado Trap. Report produced by Moritz Christian van Holst in Holland 2008. Dedicated to Linda, which I would rather see back in one piece. From the highway you can take the exit for this airport directly between Rotterdam and Delft. This is Rotterdam Airport, formerly named Zestingen, where in 1981, on October 6, our test model for Tornado Fokker Fellowship F-28, often used as a city hopper as well, and as such in active service that day, took off to crash near Moerdijk in a demonstrative way, but this type is a Fokker Friendship F-27 and pimped up as a city hopper in the national football color for the European Championship, where they made it to the quarter-finale to lose from Russia. As a circumstance, did one of the players just lose a baby due to too early birth, and was the trainer of Russia one of their own very best trainers though? Passengers depart the airport by the parking place, buses or cabs. Aircrafts can get hired for round flights as well, and there is an Aero Club. Some private aircraft wants to take off, but has to wait for some large airliners to take off and land first. Finally, our private aircraft can take off itself, and all the waiting of aircrafts in such situations can of course cause many frustration if one considers that most air accidents occur during takeoff and landing, and it really makes you feel like a dead duck. Pleasure planes take off and land all the time between the taking off and landing of regular airliners. Rows of light show aircrafts the path to flight to the runway. Airport can get reached by bike, car, bus or rent trail and by foot of course.
Airframe test.
Usually the aircrafts drive out very easily to the starting point of the runway, and nothing stands in their way to take off as lofty as can be against the wind, for as far as required to keep the running short. Strangest things can occur though when people seriously fail to avoid their plane crashes, or even love to be a bunch of terrorizing tornado zombies. Some evil day on October 6th in 1981, so not aware of that tornado trap awaiting their passengers whose colleagues that manufactured such aircrafts could merely keep on failing to avoid the crashes of their products when I approached them with my new patent to solve the problem of a scientifically analyzed lack of attenuation of a lift with two stiffly mounted wings. Our test model took off as just like its city hopper did today from this runway. type of Fokker is attached to the wing above, while our test model got the wings mounted below the fuselage, what asks for a lot of accumulation of tensions and a higher risk of eccentricities in the bearing of the wing, but it actually is favorable for stability during flight. The odd thing with this type with turboprops is that it has to let its propeller spin up standing still at the starting point, what on the other hand makes it require a short runway for taking off. Simulated in a laboratory, a tornado is fairly simple to analyze. It is in reality a whirlpool with converging opposites. Upwelling warm air confronts, down tumbling cool, dry air encounters moist, winds aloft collide with winds below. In nature, that produces torrential rain, dangerous lightning and hailstorms, and violent winds of over 300 miles an hour. The incredible tornado therapy. No other force in nature can come close to matching the power of an earthquake, except one. Tornadoes strike intensively as a quake and with the surgical precision of a guided missile. Don't we want a secure aircraft? What defect could we be talking about? Just 3 times. What defect? Tornado of revenge. When our negligence and blindness can merely awaken the dead, our aircrafts can get put to the utmost demonstrative tornado tests. As we could almost definitely notice, we do require sanely usable aircrafts, else the world is at the mercy of the darkest elements. Otherwise, plane crashes, avalanche effects would carry on people terrorizing each other to pieces in 2 historical ways. My strength theorem, with sufficient attenuation of the lift, by aid of only pneumatically mounted wings, the maximum forces should not surpass the renowned limits of the structure.
Combat of a transport pandemic. Once we merrily flew around in the air, even though the facts cost a real precious fare. This grew horribly disastrous comedy, although we hardly could bear such tragedy. These plane crashes just still kept on pouring in, especially when our criticism got wings. A request for safer aircrafts came around, but no one could believe this had any ground. How can we look like plane crashes pioneers that really shall only get disastrous cheers? Just like with other most unreal arguing, our nature stood up to this blameworthy thing. A majestic aircraft came shortly in sight, so some evil defect could get brought to light. They did not get far due to a tornado. The wing collapsed as suspected at the bow. Only one bystander lost extra his life, but all the same many thousands might have died. How can we be such plane-crashing hypocrites? It can merely make us all our problems spit. When shall worlds of aviation ever learn to respect someone else's life as we earn? What use was our technical complacency that left our criticism in mere vacancy? Did we get forced in some catastrophic way to recommend each other's garbage that day? What shall the world have to think of this affair, and bind concerned parties together with care? How can we act like such a plane-crashing stars that goes for common people really too far? What shall cure aircraft defects really in time? With negligence, chances don't look fairly fine. Do people really take enough providence to avoid calamities with assurance? What can't eventually happen to the world when people fly careless around in a herd? Were we really created to be such fools? And is the dough really worth all these blood pools? How could we get so plane-crashing barbaric? That's for normal humans really too frantic. A big bang shall follow sooner or later, when a large aircraft strikes a city center. By what entire crowd shall disease at a point? And as an atom bomb we shall then scared join. Horrible uproars shall break out only then, and guilty people shall get right in the ban. Can you not really keep an eye on the facts, if authorities shall just deny such facts? How can you get such plane-crashing terrorists? Then all things shall get guaranteed in the mist.
World Trade Center Tower number 1 has just collapsed, ladies and gentlemen. You see it live in our picture.
Hi, my name is Moritz Christian Van Holtz, by the way, and I happened to discover a method I was looking for since my 13th, when I could not escape the impression that it was possible to make aircrafts disintegrate above crowded places in demonstrative ways, as it was of course much too careless to carry on flying around with all kinds of junk above such places, let alone with jumbo jets. This method got discovered by me by coincidence when I improved some formulas for the calculation of the strength of the spar of a wing. The development of a theory of eccentricities this way showed that the common structure of a spar got overestimated for 20 till 50% or so. At that time I still studied at the Technical University of Delft, and was their student assistant at its Department of Aeronautical Engineering for the section of theoretical construction. The disillusion when I used these formulas on my programmable calculator with magnetic parts appeared to trigger all kinds of suspicious plane crashes all over the world, as I soon discovered. When I started to concentrate on the theory of finite elements methods, that of course also caused a lot of disillusion that way, and the main computers at that time appeared to be much too small to come up with some serious calculation. After when I quietly retired and managed to get myself acquitted to fulfill my military service, after when I never returned to the university, where the staff never got informed by me of these suspicious plane crashes before the media. During my study I tried to use these new formulas. After I successfully managed to do a column test for plastically buckling to ratify these new theories, a new relation with a straight steep slope, did not get the appreciation I hoped it would get, and the report merely vanished into thin air at that department as well as my portfolio, with some new formulas did, when a sudden violent wind almost got me from my bike tumbling down a trench near the department, as if a small tornado had sucked it up. Whether the police of Delft went to search for my portfolio seriously has to get doubted, but it sure never managed to turn up again. Before I was next I disappeared into the military service, in time I hoped, but afterwards these winds kept on blowing the world to pieces due to my calculations, what made me think of an experiment to prove so, and of course, that was that tornado trap of October 6th in 1981, whereby a tornado tore a wing off an aircraft in such a demonstrative way. Even though that same main police station at Delft got informed by me about it in person the day after, it still took till the end of 1987 for the press to get wind of it by hanging my phone everywhere, and managed to turn up with such a nice but not much too clarifying article to what the press did not get beyond despite several interviews by other papers. Some of us might still remember that an American and Dutch jumbo jet collided on the runway of Tenerife in
March of
1977. This made the world go down the drain of a transport pandemic, what this accident near Moerdijk managed to show us, although not many managed to notice so. As my animation ought to make us see, the negligence of others can make their authorities turn into such plane crash machos, perhaps even unwillingly and in an ignorant way, but this could also be in a deliberate and terrorizing way. Of course, this experiment did not get kept just because it was so scientifically interesting, but the heat between plane crashes machos of East and West made such action absolutely necessary to keep the world still out of an atomic war that was about to develop in the 80s. The substitute of such plane crashes catch as catch can between East and West could merely be a prelude to such a tragedy and would not last for long, no doubt. These plane crashes movies must have set fire to this situation with that accident on the runway of Tenerife, leaving the scientific world no alternative than to come up with Operation Anti-Fair, a struggle for life and death, with a pandemic escalation of that accident into many a demonstrative plane crash all over the world. To bury the past of 2 world wars and the Cold War, yet in time, so an atomic war would not come up to settle affairs the wrong way, a scientifically created demonstrative plane crash, by which a tornado would show us to us aeronautical scientists all to known defect, might still have been capable to offer solace, as people could merely awake from all their plane crashes comedy or perish from it that way. A request for a secure aircraft got made by myself to the pleasure and business planes producing aeronautical world to develop a new patent of mine on base of this strength theorem that was supposed to be still able to deal with this defect. The way they were apt to react in a for people too frustrating negative way could get used to grow a tornado that managed to strike a city hopper as a guided missile and tore half a wing off, by which it almost struck this chemical factory, and Opel showed us some years later how many could have perished so. This occurred on October 6th of 1981, near Moerdijk, hardly 15 miles from the place where I am living now, while during the experiment I still lived in Delft. The southern side of our city of Rotterdam, also known as Shell City, might have got severely rocked by the wildly flying around burning pipes of this industry if it would have been hit by this out-of-control gun aircraft with only half a wing left. They live on only 10 miles distance from the complex, and a less lucky avalanche effect could of course have set the entire airport, the harbor of Rotterdam with all its oil tanks in flames. Not being able to face such experiments, the rest of the world could merely follow with a similar show once a month on most of the capitals all over the world. Judicial actions against me about some minor civil affairs thus started a worldwide Bijlmer-crash festival that ended up in the Silver Jubilee plane crash of this experiment in October of 2006 in New York. That might remind of the September 11th tragedy. These actions probably managed to trigger with their accumulation of such plane crashes all over the world. The consequences for New York were quite tragic and comparable to the pollution by an atom bomb somewhere, due to all the radioactive elements hidden in their computers that came free when the towers collapsed. This Silver Jubilee plane crash in New York could somewhere prove that the way our verdicts could merely explicitly black on white pay no interest to my demonstrative plane crashes by tornadoes and their possible side effects could merely get these denied in court with such a Bijlmer-crash on it to the denying person in a cultural way related capital. Of course no one ought to trust such high treacherous guinea pigs and judges like that. Evaluation of this affair by psychical authorities together with me afterwards learned that they could merely take it all for an act of God without any criticism as the fanatically for genuine starving tornado punks, which they could merely be, and their parliamentary inquiry into the Bijlmer-crash could not find any conspiracy in this either. For some people abortion never comes too late. Tornadoes shall probably carry on tormenting mankind in such catastrophically demonstrative ways until people shall be wise enough to avoid all their transport disasters in a sufficient, and for everyone, and especially for nature itself, agreeable way, I am afraid. From the Technical University of Delft till Rotterdam Airport is just 5 miles or so, and many trains run between these places to stop at the nearest railway station over Schiedam, but it is better to take the direct bus from Rotterdam Central or cab, or get yourself brought to the station Kleeweg at its north side. Nowadays the rapid ferries from Paris stops at Rotterdam as well. 38 years ago I started my study for aeronautical engineer. Here at the Willenstra I rented some rooms with my by the student organization VSSD appointed brothers in study. A genuine brother of mine studied at our department spaceflight and satellites, while our sister was studying computer science at the same time. Our oldest brother already made it to become an electronical engineer over there. Our father, a neighbor of Anthony Fokker in their youth, was chief maintenance of its renowned colleague University of Technology Th Vanden after the Second World War in the Dutch Indies, which colony he and the rest of his family had to flee in the 50s after the revolution turned it into free Indonesia, but I got born, by the way, 2 years afterwards in Leiden. First I wanted to study naval engineering, but they could not come up with a time wanted battery for shell construction of spaceships. By then there was only the main department of naval and aeronautical engineering, but in 1974 both departments got their own status, and some years afterwards the renowned Polytechnical High School Th Delft mutated itself into its technical university, but whether the staff could adapt to it and if there was enough money available, for it either had to get doubted. Here at Senegalhof 28 the interview for the paper Algemeen Dagblad got taken for its publication on January 15th in 1988 on page 2. After I finished my study up to and including my bachelor I went my own way with scientific aerospace architecture, my institute, for the development of scientific aerospace designs at Roland Holslan 723, where I kept the tornado experiment on the 17th floor on top. At that time a discussion arose in Delft whether the house rent needed to get paid afterwards as usual or in advance, as the landlord all of a sudden persisted with a regular contract. Despite my warning that this tightening of the rules might lead to plane crash disastrous Russian roulette due to my experiment, it could not bother them, and they simply contradicted my experiment explicitly in our civil court at Delft. After having caused a plane crash in Jakarta and the Bijlmer-crash in Amsterdam this way, my contract got destroyed by the civil court of Delft and I got evicted from Haidman 140 by the same landlord as of Senegal after when I disappeared to Rotterdam. This is the landscape from the Department of Aerospace Engineering till Delft, where I studied at the side of the Delft part of the Schie, and nowadays I am living at the side of the Fishing Square of Rotterdam, while managing to finish the erection of my institute somewhat. The sooner we stop being such a transport pandemic gang, the less we shall have to suffer from such tornado therapies, no doubt. At the 9th floor, near the staircase at the north side, I used to work as a student assistant, for which I got appointed to assist a newly arriving professor from Caltech in the USA that actually replaced my 4 years earlier retired professor to graduate with somewhere. His expertise was eccentricities, and it actually got clear to me by him what was wrong with our way of manufacturing aircrafts. Our university could not pay any attention to my reports either, though what no one got as democratically required publicly informed about my demonstrative putting to the tornado tests of aircrafts and all kinds of similar tests the way they should have been, and their judges were so free to carry on denying these experiments in such a worldwide Bijlmer-crashes loving way, thus triggering the September 11th tragedy, although they should have been once bitten, twice shy. If my poem of just 5 stanzas with 5 verses would have got only once properly published, the world already might have known better, but although it did get hung, I mean a lot of official and less official places and in a verbal form, on the tape sent to our team, no one did get wiser despite the paper interview it managed me to derive. What could such genuine tornado morons and successful guinea pigs still be able to understand? From architecture till aeronautical engineering and vice versa, can deliver quite a remarkable picture, especially if our main department of architecture shortly ago turned into such a similar ruin as the Twin Towers, due to a short circuit by a leaking water supply of a coffee machine on a too-high floor for our fire brigade. What made it become the towering inferno movies also tried to warn for in the 80s, just as the Medusa touch did for my case. If it had been a great deal worse, a lot of precious items would not have been saved. The students did have to look for another place to get their lectures though, which they still had to get in large tents here and there. The university press that used to be lodged at this department failed to publish articles about the lacks of security as well, I am afraid, and they sure should have paid more attention to the security. What a tragedy life can be if people are merely able to copycat the worst kinds of tragedies in the most perfect ways. This kind of comedy capers is apparently abusive for the finest experiments to prove defects and problems in such a demonstrative way and so on. Perhaps we ought to look at movies and similar more consciously in a critical way, instead of letting ourselves carried away by their reality in a for ourselves uncontrollable way. Of course, this does not sound very sympathetic, but neither does getting such comedy capers types on your head in such a demonstrative way. After 20 years I went sailing again, only with sails on of course, and sure managed to get struck by a small tornado myself. That is how long such effects can carry on backfiring. Informing my clubmates by internet could merely get them to deny it all as well, and half the club managed to get struck by by such a small tornado as the annual report proved. My boat luckily hardly suffered any damage, but one of the club members almost sunk with his ship. Not being aware of such experiments can even make unexpected fleas on the head of the one who keeps these, be the judge of who is going to win the World Championship football. I am afraid it would ought to teach us not to sell fleas with such football hats. People should have stopped flying themselves to pieces in such abusive, catastrophic ways and so insane and too unaware of what was really going on, and wonder how to regain their consciousness and control over their body after a flight, what probably also might help against jet lag somewhat. One sure is not supposed to be able to keep such plane crash experiments with calculated tornadoes without the world noticing these and their horrifying effects. This department developed itself very nicely, and somewhere I am glad that I have been able to contribute something to their scientific knowledge, although they never really could appreciate it. One fine day they might wake up though and be able to face my wonderful demonstrative plane crash experiments by aid of ecological backfiring ever since 1981 October 6th near Moerdijk. Without which they in the world would have been lost forever, and myself and you as well, I am afraid. Their theories about shells and plates did not provide the accuracy I hoped, and we still need to wonder what sanely usable aircrafts are, I am afraid. Scientific Aerospace Architecture stands for such designs in air and space, so one day mankind might be able to escape to the future if our planet is about to get destroyed one way or the other. What a lot of martyrs our industrialist ways of living have produced, as we could merely take all this comedy capered for an act of God, and were required to keep us out of an atomic war. At least thousands were to be regretted by all these experiments all over the world, but millions might have perished in succession by the chain reaction of nature, with all kinds of suspicious hurricanes, tsunamis and earthquakes. It is to be hoped that we shall be able to learn our lesson in time, else such all-destructive events shall carry on occurring in demonstrative ways. It also ought to make you wonder what we owe a human being for over a quarter of a century of our political negligence and September 11th tragic denials of his demonstrative, putting to the tornado tests of aircrafts, while producing Bijlmer-crashes all over the world, with all our denials, and not being able to prevent such an action of terror, despite all his warnings, for that in public, court and our parliament. Apparently you can't avoid such acts of terrorism if you don't avoid your plane crashes, for being then such a terrorist yourself.